Right here next to me is a 2000 Porsche Boxster, and I've already broken it. But before I turn myself into the owner and potentially have to pay thousands of dollars to repair his classic German roadster, I want to show you guys around the Porsche Boxster and show you some of the things that I like most about this classic German sporting vehicle. I want to start off this video by mentioning that I've never been all that into Porsches. I've always been into less refined, more rowdy vehicles, and Porsches are known to be some of the best put together, most refined sports cars out there, so I never really got all that into them. But when I was offered the chance to take a video about one of these classic first generation Porsche Boxsters, I simply couldn't turn it down. So the goal of this video is not to share any facts or pretend I know what I'm talking about, because let's just face it, I'm not going to teach any Porsche enthusiasts things they already know about one of the most famous sports cars ever made. Instead, I'm going to film this video as an outsider and share my opinion as someone who really did not want to like Porsche vehicles, but has had my mind changed by this very vehicle right here. So let's get started. Now, when you mention Boxster to Porsche enthusiasts, you get two reactions. Either they absolutely love these cars, love the way they look and handle, or they despise them. And I, for one, I have kind of mixed feelings on the way these cars look. Until I got behind the wheel of this one and saw it in person, I was never really a fan of these first generation Boxsters. Most of the Boxsters I saw driving around when I was growing up were finished in this unmistakable yellow color, which honestly reminded me a lot of the Toyota MR2 and really cheapened the look of the Boxster in my opinion. But I have to say, once I got up close and personal with this meticulously maintained black Boxster, it has kind of changed my opinion on the way the car looks. I think there's just something about a perfectly shiny black paint job that really adds class and elegance to cars, and I especially like how this one is offset by these beautiful alloy wheels and red brake calipers. I just think that it's a super classy look, and honestly, the car as a whole hasn't aged that badly. These look fairly similar to some of the newer Boxsters that were made all the way up through the 2010s, and in my opinion, for a 26-year-old car, this thing is looking pretty good. One of the biggest things people complain about with these first generation Porsche Boxsters is the fact that they share a lot of components with the more expensive 911. And I don't mean that they're slightly different parts that are kind of similar, like I mean the exact same parts. From the midsection forward, many of these parts are directly from the 911, like the hood and the headlights and that sort of thing. And that kind of upset people who paid a lot more money for the 911. They felt kind of cheated that they were getting the same parts as the cheaper Porsche Boxster. But honestly, as an outsider to the Porsche brand, I didn't know that until I started reading about the Boxster, and I would have never guessed. To be honest, these cars look super different, and I don't see too much of a problem with sharing parts between vehicles, but I could see why some people might be upset. Alright guys, I'm just going to go ahead and pop the hood on this Boxster. Let's check out the engine. Wait a second, there's no engine up here. Yep, that's right. Just like most Porsches that have either a rear or mid-engine configuration, this powertrain is located towards the back of the vehicle. So what we're left with up here is a large front storage compartment, and this is pretty standard on most Porsches, so it won't surprise many people. But one thing that some people might not have known is just how large this storage compartment is. And one thing that really impressed me about this car is the fact that it features a spare tire up here. I haven't seen many sports cars, especially ones of this size, that have a spare tire. The front storage compartment is actually super deep. It's large. It's probably bigger than most real trunks on other cars of this size. And one thing the owner was showing me that is really cool, and I didn't know that this was acceptable to do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it, is that the battery is located right here, and he said if you go to change it, you just stand in here. You can like work in a little home and replace your battery and do whatever you need to do in here. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the convertible top on this Boxster. Now, I've always been a huge fan of convertibles and honestly have really wanted to add one to my personal car collection at some point in my life, but I've always been a little bit scared of them for the durability and longevity component of their existence. And I was supposed to film a video with this car about a week ago, but the owner let me know that the top had broken and he had to order another part, which was fine. I was busy that week. But I come back this week and go to film the car. Top is all perfect. And I mentioned a while ago that I broke the car already. And so what happened was it was getting a little hot out. It was about 90 degrees on my drive over to the filming location. So I go to put the top up and sit in the AC, and that all went fine. So when I finally got here, I released the top and started putting it down, and when it got to about here, something popped in the back area right here, and now this doesn't want to go down all the way, and I won't break that any further, but something has become dislocated back here, and it's a little scary. But I'm interested to hear from people in the comments if top issues are a relatively common occurrence on these Boxsters, or if these tops aren't even bad compared to other manufacturers. So let me know about that, but pretty interesting. Continuing with the theme of practicality on this vehicle, we have yet another storage compartment, and I swear that the Porsche Boxster has more storage space than many vehicles twice its size. But back here we have yet another area that I'm sure has been German engineered to perfectly fit a bag of golf clubs. Don't quote me on that, but it just looks like it definitely has. And we see something really interesting back here too. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, Porsche Boxsters are set up with a mid-engine configuration, so that means that the engine is up here between the rear of the vehicle and the passenger compartment. So that means that accessing it is very difficult. But I really like what Porsche did here by incorporating an oil dipstick. And you can also add oil in through here. So it's pretty cool to see that they made access nice and easy. And while I'd really like to show you guys the engine compartment on this thing, it's pretty hard to access, and this panel's already popped out of place, so I don't want to risk damaging anything any further, so I'm not going to show you guys. But the owner did show me the process of opening that before, and it was pretty complicated. First you have to lift up this panel here, and then there's another layer of carpeting or insulation. You have to unplug the stereo speaker system, and then you have to unscrew these little things, and it lifts up the panel, and in there is the engine. Once you get that open, it's still pretty hard to access things on there. Most components of this engine, if you want to replace, you got to drop it out the bottom of the vehicle, which can also be a pain. So not the easiest car to work on for a do-it-yourself mechanic. Now onto by far my favorite part of the Porsche Boxster, and that is the interior. I think this is by far the closest to perfect interior that I've ever seen on any car. It's just the right balance of modern features, but keeping it really simple, clean, and I just also really appreciate how well this car held up. It only has 38,000 miles on it. It's been garage kept its whole life. But I want to show you guys some of the features that I really enjoy about this vehicle. Look at these door panels. It's just super clean, and it has this carpeting down here. This is not cheap carpeting. This is really thick, you know, high quality material, nice sturdy grab handle, and I really like the aluminum finishing. Everything on this panel, look at the pull on that. It's got so much like resistance to it, but in a good way. It's just like really nicely done. Here, look at the steering wheel. This is a beautiful, beautiful steering wheel. And I'll get the camera angles over here to show you guys some of the other things that I love about this interior. But I really like how the owners kept the stock Porsche radio in here, very period correct. Not the easiest to use. It took me a while to figure out how to get it on AM and switch bands and that sort of thing. But, I mean, it's just really, really clean. And then this gear shifter. My God, the gear shifter. Probably the most beautiful gear shifter I've ever seen. It's got this nice alloy finishing on it to match the doors, and it's just really elegant. You know, it's not trying to be anything crazy, but it just looks good and classy. And then another thing that's really, really noteworthy are these seats. These are incredible seats. They're not overly bolstered. You don't feel like you're being squeezed, but they're also really high quality leather, super comfortable. And when you get into a vehicle of this size and nature, a sports roadster, comfort isn't exactly at the top of your list of priorities, but it's really nice to see that Porsche engineers thought about that when designing this car, and despite its sports pedigree, it still remains super quiet and well screwed together on the interior. And one thing that's very interesting to me are the gauge clusters. Now, overall, I like the design of the gauge cluster. I really like the white backgrounds with the chrome accents around the perimeter here. It's very similar to what I have on my AMG ML55. But one thing that is interesting to me is the font. I mean, overall, this kind of looks like something you'd see in a Chrysler PT Cruiser. It's just a really interesting font that Porsche went with. It's a little bit like retro. So I'm sure there's a reason for that, and someone will let me know in the comments that it was hearkening back to the 1920s Porsche Roadster that set the 60-mile lap record at some German name sports track. But to me, it looks like a PT Cruiser. So now I've shown you guys around the Porsche Boxster and shown you why it's such a timeless sporting roadster. I've also told you guys why it's single-handedly responsible for changing my opinion on what Porsches can be. But that's enough talking about this vehicle. The main attraction of the Porsche Boxster is obviously its driving experience, and it's one of the most impressive of any car that I've ever driven. So I really want to share that with you guys. So without further ado, let's get behind the wheel and see how this thing handles. Behind the wheel of the Porsche Boxster. Now, like I said, it's one of my first times driving a Porsche, but let's see how it does. I've got a interesting tripod set up here. Oh my God. So, I'll start off by saying that one of the things that I've never liked about Porsches is how quiet they are. But this one has some sort of German aftermarket exhaust system on it. And despite all the sound being behind you, it sounds really damn good. So that's one thing that I'm thrilled to have on this Porsche. Oh boy. So yeah, it sounds really, really good. And one thing that I do want to say, this is probably the best clutch I've ever felt. It's not too heavy, just the right amount of weight to it, but it has such good feel. It's hard to stall this car. There's no weird like kinks in the clutch pedal. The engagement's perfect. Oh boy, it's just so balanced on these corners, and that has to do with the mid-engine architecture. So it's got a good amount of weight on the rear. The owner, almost just lost the camera. The owner was telling me it's pretty hard to get this car to be squirrely around corners because of how it's weighted. Steering is excellent. There's really no body roll at all. It just kind of goes, and this is in the age of hydraulic power steering, so it's got a good amount of weight to it. You know, nothing crazy, but it still has that road feel that you really like to see in a car. It doesn't feel numb or anything. And then the shifter, obviously I really like how the shifter looks, but how does it feel? Well, very little in-center or very little in-gear play to it. I would call it a European feeling shifter. I've seen shifters that feel more notchy and more like boom, 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 you're getting into each gear perfectly. This one, it feels more like a Volkswagen or something, a little bit like plasticky feeling to the shifter. Not in a bad way, but just that it's not the most notchy or most precise shifter in the world, but it's still really good. I really like these turn signals too. You know, at a lower speed, you start to think about other things like turn signals. All right, so let's do one last proper rip up this mountain road before heading back into town. Wow. Yeah, it just simply hugs the road. And that's what I love about this car. Now, don't get me wrong, it isn't the most powerful car in the world. It has 260 horsepower, but it's super lightweight, and because of that mid-engine, it's one of these cars that you can truly have fun behind the wheel. And oh yeah, okay, I just felt the rear end kick out a little bit. So it definitely likes to play, but it's not gonna kill you unless you're doing it too crazy. Driven some American muscle cars where you just give it a little bit of gas and you're in the woods. With this thing, you can give the throttle some love and still be going a reasonable speed. And look at that, we're already stuck behind cars. Now, another thing that's really cool about this car is that you can drive it aggressively, you can drive it in a spirited manner, but then you can also drive slow with regular traffic, and you know, it doesn't feel harsh or anything. Honestly, the ride is really good. It does a good job of absorbing some of the bumps on the road, and overall it's really quiet. When the top was working and I had the top up, it did a good job of isolating you. The noise wasn't too bad, and granted, I didn't take it up to highway speeds or anything. But all this goes to show that during this time period, and honestly still today, Porsche makes some really high quality cars. Now, they've had some questionable instances of poor durability and reliability, especially when it comes to the IMS bearing on this one. The owner of this car just got done pulling the motor from it and actually fixing that issue. And while only 10% of the cars were affected by the IMS bearing, or 10% of the cars might have a failure in the lifetime of the vehicle, the owner said it's, of course, worth doing that just to be safe if it hasn't been done already, because if it goes, so does your motor. So you don't want that to happen. And while the owner was in there under the hood, or after he pulled the engine out of it, he did a lot of the other things that are difficult to get to, and was able to, service all those items while the motor was out of the vehicle. But yeah, Porsche has some great build quality, and honestly, I'm really impressed. This car is, 25 years old, or 26 years old almost, and it drives better than basically any new car on the road. It's light on its feet, it's well put together, heavy-ish steering, good feel, simple interior. I mean, it's really hard to beat, this combination. And then people still think you're driving an expensive car, because honestly, Porsches still look fairly similar to this day. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for the next one.